Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Conversations with My People. First of all, I want you to know I've really missed this community, and many of you have been reaching out, DMing me. So thank you so much for staying in connection. And I really needed to take a time out. I for sure was in a place where I was finding myself a little bit more agitated, maybe a little bit more moody, a little bit more frustrated at things. And then I started doing more. Like, okay, I have to do more rituals, then I have to do more meditation and more breath work. And then finally, I was just like, wait, maybe I need something else. And what I really needed was, I'm so fortunate that I was able to just get off the grid, just really get off the grid for a few weeks, connect to being alone, like no phone, no social media. There was literally no Wi-Fi where I was, no people. Like there were a couple of days where I was completely alone. And that for me, I came into the world a twin. I wasn't even alone in vitro. So being alone for me really is not like the most comfortable place. So I just feel so blessed that I was able to take that time. And I did an amazing workshop, and I did a couple little healing workshops. And the other great part of it is that I get to share these experiences and these insights with all of you. So that really makes me so excited over the next couple of weeks to be able to share. And in true transparency, I'm even going to be processing, because a lot of stuff came up for me, for sure. Stuff that I thought I had already worked through. Like, I did that inner child work years ago. I did this years ago. Why is this still coming up? So we have to always remain the student. We have to always remain the student. That's what just keeps knocking on my head, Lavinia. This journey, when we choose to take a journey like this, it doesn't end. We never get the certificate and be like, oh, I have all that now. No, like something else in life will just hit you over the head and you realize, back to square one. So with that, I am so excited for our very special guest today, Emily Fletcher, who I met in October. I've spoken about this event numerous times on Conversations with My People. I went to this amazing event, the Unicorn Group, and this was 32 really like fabulous, badass, successful women. And Miss Emily was there. And I have to tell you, when this woman walks in a room, she literally takes your breath away. And I really mean that, because first of all, she's statuesque. She's tall, and she walks like a dancer. And I later found out she was a dancer, with grace and with poise. But what got me is the kindness in her eyes. Like when she shows up and she looks at you, you just see, like you feel this kindness just coming out of her. It's like, whoa. And I just remember seeing her and I was like, I want to walk over and meet her. And then luckily enough, we were at the same lunch table. And I just was like, oh, happy that I'm sitting across from this woman. And we didn't get to talk much at lunch, but then she opened up, or breakfast maybe, and then she opened up and did a beautiful meditation. And really grounded all of us women and centered us. And really for me, that's when everything started, because prior to that, I felt like everything was just a little chaotic. And then when she grounded us and brought us together in this group, it was like as if our heartbeats were just all beating together. And that's when I felt like we were really able to connect as a group in a much more vulnerable, deeper way, where we know when we're willing to be vulnerable, that's when like you can really connect with people. So I'm so happy to have her on. This is a woman who she's written a best-selling book called Stress Less, Accomplish More: Meditation for Extraordinary Performance. She's recognized as an expert in meditation, actually, she's a public speaker. But what I love about her story is that, and which stuff we talked about all the time on Conversations with Our People, is how we pivot. And she has had so many pivots. I mean, this woman started out as well, she didn't start out as a successful actress on Broadway, but she certainly worked her way there, and then she found meditation, and now she's successful in that. And then she pivoted into entrepreneurship, and she literally has like courses, and she's an entrepreneur. So those are the things that we're going to tap into today. So before we start, let's welcome Emily on. Hi, Emily.
Hello. Man, I have to say, this is the first time anyone's ever introed me where I started crying. When you said that I took your breath away when I walk into a room, just instant tears, because that's how I felt about you. I was instantly like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? I have to meet her. Like, you were just sitting still, and I could feel you in this room of these powerhouse women. And so I'm just so glad that nature has put us together, and I'm honored to be here. So thank you for all of that.
All right. So I know, like, we need to get you to do our 3 minutes of breath work, because this is a real treat for me as well. So we always do this. This is a ritual we do before we start, just to get our community grounded. And just for some people, they haven't never done breath work. So this is a way to also introduce it. So please do your magic, girl.
It would be my pleasure. So we'll start with a really simple technique. I call it balancing breath. If you're in the yoga world, it's also called an alternate nostril pranayama breathing, but balancing breath will do, because we're going to balance the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And really my goal here is so that we can get into our head and heart coherence with ourselves, but also so that we can imagine getting into heart coherence with everyone who's on this call, so that we open our hearts to receive exactly what we're meant to receive, so that Lavinia and I feel connected and in flow, and we are downloading whatever you need to receive through these particular mouthpieces. So go ahead and take your right hand. We're going to use our thumb and our ring finger. So close your right nostril with your thumb, and we're going to exhale through the left. So we're going to start by just emptying out all that stale air, all that old air. Just breathe out all the way to empty. And inhale through your left nostril, breathing in. And when you get to the top of the inhale, I invite you to take one more sip of air, floating at the top for just a moment, and then closing your right nostril with your ring finger and exhaling. Close your left nostril with your ring finger and exhale through the right. Again, all the way to empty. When you get to the bottom of the exhale, I invite you to hold in that space between for just a moment, and then allow that breath to fall back into the lungs, filling them all the way to full. And when you get to the top of the inhale, one more sip of air, and just like you're at the top of a roller coaster, that little space between where things get exciting and we don't know what's going to happen next, and then we switch sides and we let that air fall out of the left nostril. And I invite you to close your eyes if you haven't already. And this time, as we inhale, imagine sending this breath and energy in through the base of your spine. And as you inhale, can you imagine this energy traveling all the way through your root, through your womb, if you have one, your belly, your heart, your throat. One sip of air at the top of the inhale, and then switching sides. And as you exhale, I invite you to imagine sending that breath and energy right out through the middle of your forehead. Really good. And on this next inhale, again, imagining the breath and energy coming in through the base of the spine. We're going to wake up all of this creative energy that can get stuck at our root, and we're going to bring it up through each energetic center in the body, through our belly, through our heart, through our throat, to open up our voice. When you get to the top of the inhale, one more sip of air, and then switching sides, closing your other nostril. And as you exhale, imagine sending all of that creative energy right out through the middle of your forehead and out into everything that you want to create in the rest of this day, and perhaps even in the rest of this week. And we'll do one final cycle. So letting this be the biggest inhale you've taken all year. Really feeling every single cell in your body with this nourishing oxygen. When you get to the top of the inhale, one more sip of air, increasing your capacity, opening up your heart. And as you exhale, let your brow soften, let your jaw soften, let your shoulders drop, let your heart open, let your belly release. And keeping the eyes closed, but dropping your hands into your lap. And we'll take a moment here, eyes closed, having allowed the right and left hemispheres of the brain to start to connect, imagining your heart and your head connecting with each other. And now I invite you to quite literally open up your heart to this conversation, to whatever wisdom you're meant to receive through this, and opening up your heart to every other person watching on all of these different platforms all around the world. It's not an accident that you're here right now. So we'll call in our higher selves. We'll trust that we're here for a reason, and that we can enjoy this journey of discovering what wisdom will be delivered to our hearts together. Really good. And giving yourself a high five for saying yes to this, taking a big, delicious inhale, starting to move your hands, your feet. And in your own time, when you are feeling ready, we can start to slowly, gently open the eyes.
Oh my God, I love you. You are just so good at what you do. I mean, really, like, girl, you just found your genius. Like, you're right on point. Whew. So, you know what? Tell us, like, how you found this genius, because, how did you make the transitions? Like, you were even a teen beauty pageant, which I learned the other day. Not only were you a teen beauty pageant, but that was actually the money that you used for college. Yeah. Like, so when I heard that, I was like, dang, like she was an entrepreneur. Didn't even know it in high school, because you're figuring out ways like, all right, I got to pay for school. How am I going to do it? Like, man, that is just unbelievable. And then you become this actress and a meditation teacher, a on fire author, online entrepreneur. And I mean, that is not a typical trajectory. That's not like, oh my God, like that is just a typical trajectory. That's just normal. Like there was so much about that. Like there's so many layers to that is not in the like normal trajectory of the way we do things. And I want to know a little bit about like, I always say that a lot of times when we get to where we are, there's like these little breakthroughs that happen, or breakdowns rather. And it's those breakdowns that create some energy, some opportunity, some possibility. Because a lot of times what our mind, the rational mind thinks, okay, go to college, you graduate, you do this, you do that. Like a lot of those, that's the normal trajectory for people. Mm-hmm. And so often we get these beautiful blessings of a breakdown and that brings us on another course. Yeah. And that course actually ends up being our dharma. It ends up being like our real meaning, right? Like take us on that for you, because I want to understand how you go from a very successful, actress to becoming a meditation teacher. And then from there.
So I love this framework of breakdown to breakthrough, because there's been so many. And you're right. So in high school, I was Florida's junior miss, which I just have to say out loud, it's not a beauty pageant. It's a scholarship program. It only goes to college seniors. It pays for college. 50% is academic. And some of these women were some of the smartest, most talented. Like the average GPA was 4.7. And it was just and I say that because even at 17 years old, being surrounded with 50 other women who were, accomplished academically and artistically and in sports, it really raised my bar for myself, because I was sort of a big fish in a small pond. And when even at 17, before I went to college, I was like, oh, there are other people that have their eye on the prize, that are hustling, that have big dreams and want to make a big impact in the world. And so it made me like not rest on my laurels. Mm. So that was that piece. And I loved going to school. I majored in musical theater at Florida State, got very lucky. I got my first job my second day in New York City, had a beautiful 10-year career as a working actress, which was awesome and what I wanted to do since I was a child. But I would say that the first sort of breakdown that led to a breakthrough was that my last Broadway show was a chorus line. And my job was to understudy 3 of the lead roles. And that means you have no idea which character you're going to play when you show up at night. So it's basically constant fight or flight, constant anxiety. They could throw you on a moment's notice. They could switch you from role to role. And so even if I wasn't on, I was in panic that I was going to be on. And so that led to anxiety, which led to insomnia. I didn't sleep through the night for 18 months. I started going gray at 27 years old. So here I am on Broadway living my dream, and I'm miserable. So thankfully, the woman sitting next to me in the dressing room has a harder job than me, understudying 5 of the lead roles, including Cassie, and she's nailing it. Every song, every dance, every bite of food is a celebration. And I was like, excuse me, what do you know that I don't know? And she said, I meditate. I was like, oh God, one of you. Like you're probably having crystals in your hands while you're holding an interview. And which we both have, by the way. And so I'm rolling my eyes. This was 12 years ago. There was not the neuroscience then that there is now. There were no apps then. There were no Oprah Chopra challenges. Meditation was still considered weird. And so I didn't believe her. I just kept having insomnia and sucking at my job and going gray. And then finally, I was like, this is not who I am. Like, this is not the Emily Fletcher that moved to New York, believing that I could do whatever I wanted. So long story short, I took this meditation class. It was 4 days. And on the first day of my first class, I was in a different state of consciousness than I had ever been in before. And I liked it. And then that night I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And I have every night since, and that was 12 years ago. I then stopped going gray. I just turned 42 last Saturday. I have like 3 gray hairs. I was legitimately going gray in my 20s. I did not get sick for 8.5 years. And so finally I was like, why does everyone not do this? So I left Broadway. I went to India. I started what became a 3-year training process to teach. And then since graduating, I've taught now 50,000 people to meditate, which I'm very proud of. The book has been translated into 14 different languages. And it feels like I'm able to use this whole lifetime of performance background, but now to help people. Like, I'm one of those people like you. If I find something that works, I want to shout it from the rooftops. I'm like, wait, people are suffering. There are tools to help. Like, let's get it to the masses. And so I just sort of can't help myself when I find things that work. So that was the first pivot. And then when I went to India, though, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to be a teacher. I was like, oh, I'll just go to deepen my own practice. But then in India, I had this moment where it was like I had full body goosebumps, and it was like time folded in on itself, and it was like, oh, you're going to teach this. So that was one. And then the second big pivot was, to be honest, when I started teaching, I thought it would be like a cute side gig. When I started my teacher training, I was like, oh, if I'm in between shows, like I'll just teach. Instead of waiting tables, I'll teach some meditation classes. And then my agents would call me. This is back in the day when headshots were printed, and they'd be like, hey, Emily, can you bring us some headshots and resumes? And I'd be like, yeah. 3 months would go by. I would not have brought any headshots and resumes, but I would have taught 400 people to meditate. So then cut to, there's this 1 week. I am launching the world's first online meditation training. Again, pre-Headspace, pre-Calm, pre-Oprah Chopra. I did not know if it was going to work or not. I was also in final callbacks to play Velma in Chicago, the musical on Broadway. And I was opening up the East Coast division of the #1 acting school in LA. And I was like, okay, nobody wins here. Like, I'm talented, but I'm not giving any of this my all. Like, I'm not doing any of it to the degree that I could be. And that's the week that I stopped acting. That's the week I called my agents and I was like, I love you so much, but I'm already voting with my time and my attention, and my heart is really in teaching. And so that was like the first big shift where I doubled down on Ziva. And then of course there was, when you invest your time in something, it invests back. And now I feel like I'm in the middle of another reinvention because the world is changing, my interests are changing, and so I'm sort of figuring out what the next chapter is now.
Well, I love that, because that's really how we grow. I remember years ago at Equinox, like I went through a really the dark seat of the soul. And what came out of that was a wellness center. Because as I went through my own stuff and I had to go through it, and I realized some of the issues that I was having, even though they had manifested themselves on a physical plane in my physical body, it was from my imbalances in my emotional and my mental and even in my spiritual. So when I went through that, dark seat of the soul, at the end of it, I wanted, after I had done so many different modalities and I got clarity, I was like, oh, I want to share this with people. I want to bring it forth. I want to bring that forth. And then that was the launching of the Equinox Wellness Center. So I get what you're talking about. So much comes through our own journey. It's so much you bring forth and you've realized something, and then you start seeing this little white space that's available in there. You're like, oh my God, like nobody's talking about that. Like that's an opportunity. So with that, I want to like just go into our second questions. You said something that resonated with me actually in an earlier conversation. And that's something I often say to people who are struggling, like when they're struggling with that decision about making that pivot in their lives, right? And you said that there's a difference between ego and inspiration. And I would just like, after you said that, I was like, boom. Well, first of all, I'm obsessed with ego. Like I'm reading Jay Shetty's book right now, and I must have reread the chapter on ego 5 times. And he's written it so beautifully that it's so simple. And one of the reasons I'm reading it is because I like to read books that I think the younger people that I mentor would be interested in. So he's young and he's cute and he's on Instagram. So I thought, let me kind of like see what he says so I can, send my young people there. But the truth of it was some of the stuff he was talking about ego was like, like just so right on. So I'm really excited to hear about how you define that.
Yeah, so a good litmus test if you're making a decision based on ego or based on inspiration, and the way that we would talk about that in the Vedas. So I've been studying the Vedas, which Veda is a Sanskrit word. Veda means knowledge. Knowledge of what? Basically knowledge of nature. And the cool thing about the Vedas is that it's not a doctrine, it's not a dogma. You don't have to be a monk in order to practice it. It's actually, and the cool thing about Ziva is that it's not monk meditation. It's made for people with busy minds and busy lives. And so the Vedas are also not a doctrine. It's just a human interpretation of natural law. And the idea here is that the more you know about it, the more you can get into flow with nature. The more you understand your own body rhythms, your own body type, and how it's dancing with nature, the more you can optimize for your own energy. But anyway, according to the Vedas, we would call ego like small s self, and we would call totality or inspiration big S self, because at the end of the day, it's all self. Right? Like the most foundational concept from the Vedas is that there is only one thing and we are all it. And that one thing is energy. And if you want to look at that from a more scientific point of view, there's only one thing and we're all it. And that thing it's a God particle. It's the Higgs boson particle. It's the smallest thing that we can detect. And it's what makes up everything. This water bottle and crystals and me and you and our outfits and those books and that orchid, they're all just different collections of Higgs boson particles, also known as the God particle. So basically, I like this idea of it's not oneness, it's unity. It's that we're all like bifurcations of this one thing. But if you are making a decision based exclusively on ego or small s self, it usually depletes your energy, right? Like if you do it for a while, you feel exhausted, you feel run down, you feel like you need support. And versus if you're making a decision and on a path where nature is guiding you, where it's coming from the big S self, the more energy you put into it, the more energy you get back. It becomes regenerative, and it becomes self-sufficient. So I would say that, and of course there's going to be days where we all need rest. This isn't like, oh, I'm on my path, so I never need to sleep again. No, everything in balance. But we know if we're like pushing too hard and every door is slamming in our face and it just feels like everything is a heavy lift versus, oh my gosh, I had this idea and this person called. Oh my gosh, I met the perfect designer for this, where you're just in flow. And so part of that comes from meditation because you're, connecting the right and left hemispheres of the brain. But part of that comes from making sure that you're listening to your own intuition and using you, as you would say, that you're on your dharmic path, that you're allowing nature to use you as a vessel to deliver your fulfillment to the world. Versus what a lot of people are doing when they make ego-based decisions is that they're using their desires as a way to fill themselves up, right? Like, let me go and acquire this thing to fulfill my need. Versus when you meditate and you're listening to inspiration, you become fulfillment looking for need. And this is a big.
You have to say that again.
Yeah. So a lot of us, before we have a meditation practice, before we're on our dharmic path, it's like we are bags of need looking to be fulfilled. If I make more money, if I have more Instagram followers, if I can just acquire this company or get another hire, then I will be happy. We are need looking for fulfillment. And once you start meditating and accessing that fulfillment inside and then listening to your dharmic path, you become fulfillment looking for need. And
Yes.
every really good entrepreneur is looking to solve a
You
problem.
say looking for need because like that really resonates with me, like need of where you can serve, right?
Yes.
Like where you can share your gifts, where you can share your expertise, where you could share that and actually like help people and
Yes.
elevate people and teach people and like that that I love. Like that
Yeah.
is just so
And
on point.
and that's the gig. Like that to me is the trick of great entrepreneurs, right? Because it's not just solving a problem. Because there's anyone can solve a problem, but if you can do it like in your Lavinia way, right? Like the way that you're going to solve a problem is different than the way that I'm going to solve a problem. And so the question is your unique skill set, beautifully matched to that particular challenge that you're trying to solve. And when you find that, like that's where the magic happens. And so I actually have a series of 4 questions that I think might be helpful for people. If you're whiteboarding it and like, oh, what's my next thing? Or, where am I best of service? It's a really simple framework, but what is the most pressing need of the time? Right? What is the most pressing need of the time? 2, how do my gifts best serve that need? 3, which of those gifts do I want to use? And that's an important one. Which of those gifts do I want to use? And 4, which of them do I want to use right now? Because, I'm a really great tap dancer, and I'm sure that I could find a way to solve some problem with my tap dancing, but it's not one of my gifts that I want to use right now.
Right.
Right? So we get some say. Right? It's not, I don't think it's 100% nature dictating to us, and it's certainly not us dictating to nature. I believe it's a 50-50 dance.
It's interesting that you say that because I think that was a little bit of my little timeout was that I needed to connect because, we're doing these shows and we're doing this and a lot of people are leaning in and reaching in and saying, hey, Lavinia, could you do this? Could you do this for us? Could you do that? Could you do this? Clubhouse. I mean, and I'm like the yes girl. I just love to say yes. I mean, because first of all, I love what I do. I feel like because it is in my dharmic path, I'm like, stuff comes, but like, I was saying yes to so many things that I just was like, okay, I need to reset this and kind of like get in touch with me, my heart, my soul, my human spirit, like what was really coming through me, like that end, what gifts do I, like you say, what gifts do I want to share now? Like
Yes.
what is really like, so I think that is so on point, like to be able to have some discernment and some connection and processing like some of the stuff, like I realized I was just too quick to say yes because I just want to serve, I want to help, I want to elevate, I feel like I have this wisdom and I have this voice and I have this like, and it's all for good for the world and good for the planet, but you even have to sometimes hold back a little bit and make some decisions, so
Sure.
I
And then it becomes a matter of, well, if you decide, if you're like, oh, this is coming through, nature is really wanting to use me in this moment in time. And if you sort of create that roadmap and commit to that, that might involve saying no to a lot of clubhouses and a lot of dinner parties or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you commit to the roadmap because you're very clear on the vision, you likely are going to reach a lot more people, even if it means saying some no's along the way. Because I'm similar. My people call it shiny train syndrome, where I'm like this. And so everyone around me, I'm like, okay, because I'm so shiny train, I make sure that my team is very much like execute, like create the roadmap, commit to the plan, and then I get like 10% of shiny trains.
love that. But even with that, like I think this is a good segue on to the next question because even when you are in your flow, and that's kind of what I always called like in your lane. When you're in your lane and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then it's like you're working hard, and you're moving forward, and you're working hard, you're making flow. The phone calls are coming, that this is coming, you're getting traction. Maybe you're getting a little viral here, like you got this little success dance going, right? And it's still hard. Like I have this like huge pet peeve right now around the way social media glamour, it just makes entrepreneurship sound so glamorous, like so glamorous to where so many of these young people graduating college, like I'm an entrepreneur. They don't want to go into corporate America at all. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, like, let's look at this because you do need some training. Like you do need some. So like, again, it's like, there's a part of me that is like, come on, people, like, it isn't like just, it isn't so glamorous. I mean, I know in my 20 years of being an entrepreneur, like there were days it was like, we didn't know where we were going to get money to pay for this and pay for that. And you were like doing this dance to keep these people off. And you were, I mean, like, it's not as glamorous as it seems. So like, let's talk about some of these challenges because you're now in your, you're working through as an entrepreneur. You've got some amazing things happening. And I know there's still like, you're moving and there's definitely good energy and good juju and you're doing what you're supposed to do, but it's still hard. Like I say to people, I mean, how many days were there just days where like, you just wanted to give up? Like you just wanted to go like, oh, and then you have to like, I used to always have this thing is just make it, come on, Lavinia, like get in your vibration, get in that success vibration. And, and then, cause you couldn't walk into your clubs and be like, I'm exhausted, like there were days where I'm exhausted. Like you have a kid, like my kid was up all night with an earache and you were up all night with him and you're just like, I remember looking in the mirror and thinking a little more concealer.
Yeah, it's every new mom's best friend is under eye concealer.
I mean, like sometimes I swear I think I had 3 different concealers.
I have 2 on. No, I might have 3 on right now. My son's 2.5, but thankfully he sleeps. But so this is an interesting thing. So I've had so many beautiful teachers and guides and mentors and that have helped me. And one thing that's really stood out is that it's such a simple, it's almost cliche, but it's really, I hear it in my head a lot. Like if it was easy, everyone would do it. Right. And it's less than, I'm sure you know this better than anyone. It's less than 3% of female entrepreneurs cross the 7-figure mark. And I really appreciate you for having this podcast or this show because it's like, we got to change that because we know scientifically that the more successful, financially successful women are, they invest that money back into their families, back into their communities, that they use that wealth to enrich the people around them, which is different than and not to be totally gender stereotyping, but this is just what the numbers are saying right now. So this is something I'm very interested in changing, is getting more females across the 7-figure line. Also, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And so there's going to be days, of course, you think it's going to fail. If there's not a time where you're working on something where you're like, there's no way this project is going to go, it's likely not pushing you hard enough. It's likely too easy for you and you're staying in maintenance mode. Mm-hmm. You're staying in your comfort zone. And then the other piece that's really helped me is that I remembered like, it's a job. Like there's a reason why you get paid. Like this is not a hobby. And so there's going to be pieces of my job that I love. And there's going to be pieces of my job that I don't love all the time. And that's a job. If I had a job at a corporate, if I was waiting tables, I used to love waiting tables. There was lots of it that I enjoyed. And there were pieces of it that were hard.
Crazy for that. I loved waiting tables.
Me too. I was so good at it.
I don't think I was good at it. I just loved all the people.
Yeah, I loved meeting people and I loved the hustle. It felt like a show to me. So anyway, those are like some idioms or axioms that have stayed with me. But the other thing is that because it's a job, if you look at the percentage of your time, right, of like, how am I really spending my time? And I realized I only spend about 15% of my time teaching meditation. And now in the pandemic, that has dropped precipitously because I'm not teaching live anymore. And so just because you love being a meditation teacher doesn't mean that if you start a meditation business that you're going to be teaching 100% of the time. Like 80% of the time I'm running my team, hiring, dealing with marketing, looking at, conversion rates, doing team reviews, forecasting, so it's like you got to know that if your hobby is so sacred to you that you wouldn't want to spend, 80% of your time talking about the numbers around it, then it might want to stay a hobby. right? Like just because you love it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be a business. So that's been really helpful. And then the other piece that I think is relevant, that another sort of esoteric concept from the Vedas, is that according to the Vedas, there's no such thing as good or bad. There's no such thing as right or wrong. There is only creation, maintenance, and destruction. Right? So even if you don't believe this is true, it's a cool thought experiment. So what if there's no such thing as good or bad? What if there is only creation, maintenance, and destruction? And what I have found is that the more we lead with creation, which means innovation, stepping into the unknown, birthing new things, then maintenance is naturally in second place and destruction is naturally in third. And life flows pretty elegantly. You find yourself like in that juju, things are calling, little viral over here, you're in that success dance because you are supporting nature in her main theme, which is progressive evolution, which is creation. But here's what we humans do. Okay, we create something, we like it, we like the results of it, and then we try to hold on, we try to maintain. And if we start leading with maintenance, then guess what? Destruction is nipping at our heels and creation has gone to the back burner. And then we all know what it looks like when destruction moves into first place. It's not bad necessarily, but it's not elegant, right? And that destruction is making way for creation. Like it is a cycle, just like the seasons. But what I find that especially with entrepreneurs, especially with people who are like on the path and waking up, it's really important that we continue to ask the question, where am I leading with creation? Where have I started leading with maintenance? And where is destruction coming through to clean house? Because, and this could happen in our physical body, in our romantic relationships, in our homes, you know, in any area. Sometimes we need to blow the dust off and mix it up a little bit.
Well, I love what you're saying about that, because so often when I'm coming in to help someone and they're out of that creation energy, and I walk in there, and that first of all, it's all about the numbers and how much money and this and the followers, and we got to build this. I walk into these meetings and I'm thinking, wow, like, I just want to get out of here. Like there's nothing in here that's expansive and hard and like pumping of joy and innovation and creativity. Like, because even with numbers, when you're talking money, you could still be so creative. Like it doesn't have to have that other, like in financial investment, harsh, weird energy. Like you could still have, it could still move with fluidity and flow. And I think that's like that with a lot of things, like in our life, if we have if there's a little bit more room for space to be able to stay into that creative and imagine if instead of beating it, like sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I'm thinking, God, you guys just beat this horse dead with every possibility somebody would throw out. We could do this, and then they would sit there and tell you why you can't do that, why this isn't going to be successful. It's like I would just feel like, oh my God, you just sucked the energy out of the room.
Yes.
I really think it's important for people to stay in that. It will keep you there. It'll keep you in that first one you talked about, the creative, longer, and that's where the magic is, right?
Yeah. And the thing to know about creation is that it is where the magic is, and birthing something is hard work. You know, like we've both had kids, like it's hard work. Starting a company is work, moving homes. Like anytime you're going to birth something from the unmanifest into the manifest, it's terrifying. You know, anytime you pierce that veil, it's scary. You know, you're literally stepping into the unknown. And so even though it's scary and even though it's hard work, it is safer than the ever repeating known. Yeah. Okay, it is safer to lead with creation than it is to get into maintenance mode, because if you're leading with maintenance, you are waving the flag of irrelevancy for destruction to come through and clean house. Because again, nature wants to support people who are supporting her in this theme of creation and evolution. And so the more you're willing to step into the unknown, the more you're willing to say, hey, use me as a vessel, the more of nature's support we're going to get. And that like beating it again and again and just the numbers and just, it's a very, it's too harsh. It just takes the life out of something.
It does, for sure. So I want to get a little bit into the meditation where I know we're kind of coming to the end, but I know you talk a lot about like how meditation is like the fastest way to feel better quickly. Like you could be and at that, place where you're like just you're in a funk. Like you either, you had that phone call that you just not so happy to get, right? Like it makes you and how that one phone call could bring you down like a dark road. And then before you know it, you've had a shitty day, you've had a bad week, and and it just kind of builds. So I love that because that's like a quick tool for people to be able to change a trajectory of a moment, to not react. Because so much of what we do as human beings, we just react, right? So take us through a little bit of how that meditation can sort of help in.
Well, I would say, so what's cool about Ziva is that it's actually three different practices. It's mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. So it's the three M's. And what you're talking about, this sort of like, I got the call, I can feel my energy changing, I don't want to go down this dark road, I need to flip it around in a quick way. I would call that a state change. And I actually think that mindfulness is very good at that. Breath work, moving the energy, you could do a guided app or something like that where it's like, oh, I need to change my state in the now. Beautiful. That's what we use as the appetizer at Ziva, sort of like the runway in, versus the meditation is the main course of Ziva. And this for a lot of folks is likely very different than what they think of when they think of meditation. Now, in this day and age, when you say meditation, people are like, oh, which free app did you download? And to me, using your phone to meditate is like having an AA meeting in a liquor store. Like, I just don't know why you would want to go into the belly of the beast to unplug. So we're really big on self-sufficiency. So even though I do use technology to teach people these skills, I want to make people self-sufficient. I don't want them dependent on me or an app or a dude playing drums on their chest. It's just like, no, close your eyes and access this limitless bliss that is inside of you. And so the difference between mindfulness and meditation, technique-wise, is that mindfulness, you're directing your focus. Okay, so you're using the prefrontal cortex. Anytime you're focusing on something, your breath, your chakras, a waterfall, something you want to create, I would put this in the category of mindfulness. Very good at dealing with your stress in the now. Different than Ziva meditation, which is all about getting rid of your stress from the past. So not a quick fix. It is a process. It is a practice.
It's all about getting
rid of your stress from the past. So mindfulness, handling your stress.
When you say stress, because stress is such a generic word, right? Yeah. But are you also talking about like people's like triggers, their like their body of pain from like incidents that happened from when they were a kid, like
yes. So the mindfulness is very good at dealing with your stress in the now, a state change, versus the meditation is very much a trait change, meaning that we are healing ourselves on a cellular level. So I've had PhD therapists, PhD psychotherapists take the course, and they're like you said, they're like, I dealt with this already. And I'm like, yes, you dealt with it psychologically, you dealt with it emotionally, but this stuff is still in your cells. And so what Ziva does is that it rings you out on a cellular level. And so even though you might have worked through something on this plane, you might be crying or going to the bathroom or having nightmares, or your body really goes through quite a purge when you start the Ziva process. And that is because you're healing the stress from your past. So yes, triggers, yes, stuff that's been stored in your muscles, maybe even stuff epigenetically. So, we've proven now that you can inherit stuff for a minimum of 2 generations, but some people are hypothesizing you can inherit stress for up to 7 generations. So, I'll only speak to what we've proven, which is 2 generations, but, it's not a secret that if your mom is stressed, certainly when she's pregnant, like that's going to impact you. If you grow up around a stressed parent, like you're going to inherit that stuff. So sometimes we're cleaning our own, sometimes we're also helping to clean previous generations. But here's the cool part. Ziva is giving your body rest that is about 5 times deeper than sleep. And so for a 15-minute meditation, it's the equivalent of an hour-long nap. And if you do that twice a day, plus sleep at night, it's like you're de-exciting. And when you de-excite something, you create order. And when you create order in your body, then this lifetime of accumulated stresses that we all have in our cellular memory starts to come up and out. And that's really my job as a teacher, is to help usher people through that initial catharsis. But then once it's out, it's never coming back. Yes, you'll have new stresses. Yes, you'll have new challenges, but that particular window has been closed. And so what I find is that when I say stress, I mean the chronic low grade cumulative stress of the fact that our food isn't food. We're not exercising as much as we should. We're not having as much sex as we are meant to, not as much sunshine. It's just all the little things that we do over time is making us stupid, sick, and slow. And so if you commit to a daily practice, you're peeling away those layers so that you can take someone's breath away when you walk into a room, so that you can meet someone fully and give them your full consciousness when you're in a conversation.
I love that. I really love that. And what I'm going to do this, guys, I'm going to actually work with Emily for 4 days and go do a deep dive on this. But what I love about it is that because so much, like when I look at so many of the young women that I, mentor and work with, I mean, like so many of these women have gut issues so young. They have anxiety. Like there's all these layers of stuff that these young people are having.
Yeah.
That I do believe a little bit of it is from, or it's exacerbated, it is from all of the technology.
1,000%.
That's like another layer.
Yeah.
All this FOMO that they're having, like, oh, that one got a job advance. That one got this. I got furloughed. That one's vacationing in Miami. My parents are, like there's just so many layers now that we didn't have to deal with
Thank
when
God.
we were teenagers.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's
But
not natural. It's not natural for us to know everyone's goings on in the world.
And the truth of it is, half of them, they're not even showing you the truth.
Yeah.
They're showing you the illusion of what they want you to see. Like think about it. Like people are taking pictures now and they can make themselves look like they're 102 pounds and they're 140 pounds. Like nothing is real. Everything is just, it's become, I'm like, I don't want to get into that because I can get really like that about it.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think to your point, it's like in addition to the food and the stress and all just life, now put on top of that, pandemic, isolation, social media. And of course, we're going to have to really handle the fallout from that, the mental, emotional, psychological fallout from that. And so I'm really interested in working with young people. It's why we actually just created Ziva Kids, which is for, it's younger than this, but 4 to 14. Because if you install these tools in the minds of children who are already in a hypnotic state, they're already in a pre-meditative state until 8 years old. And if you can teach children how to hold on to that authenticity and how to cultivate and curate that way inside, if you teach them that they can actually look at their internal screen for their happiness versus always going to the external screen, then they take that with them into adolescence. They take it with them into early adulthood. And it's not going to solve the social media problem fully, but it will at least teach you to not be so outwardly focused for your happiness, that you at least know where to look. Because the reality is our happiness exists in one place and it's inside of us and it exists in one time and it is right now. And if you don't have a tool like meditation to help you access this, then you will constantly be in what I call the I'll be happy when syndrome. And that's searching, reaching, neediness, greed, hunger, and not enoughness. And this is really the basis for all of the ills in our society.
Oh my gosh. I love what you're doing. I think that the way you're putting it together is so smart. What I love about it is that nobody's going to be intimidated, because I do think that this journey of embarking on this can be really intimidating for people. And you've created it in a way where they can understand it. It's simple enough. It's not like, oh my God, I have to buy an altar and I need all these things to do and I wouldn't even know where to do that, and I love also that it's really about yourself, like you being your guru, you being able to, to connect to you, to be able to move through life and not be dependent on a teacher or a psychic or all these things that, people at times like need, but it gives you that, to hold that space for you, so Emily, I am so excited. I'm even more excited for the treats that you're sharing with our community because I know you have a 15-day that online program, and our community conversations with our people, go on to laviniaerico.com. Emily has been generous to give the first 3 days complimentary. So you guys, grab your kids, grab your parents, grab your friends, grab like all your community, and like do this, get on and do these 3 days. And then I know you're going to be inspired to then purchase the course. And she's giving us a 15% off, and the discount code is inside out 15. So I think it's amazing. Emily, thank you so much. You've given us so much good information. And you're just so beautiful. You're beautiful the way you set it up, the way you share your gifts with the world, and the way you are just constantly growing and expanding and staying so present and working through, your own stuff so that then something else comes through to share with the world. So I am so inspired by you on so many levels.
Wow, the feeling is so mutual. And thank you for saying that about, always being the student, because I look to you of like, oh, she's gotten it all figured out and she's done so much and now she's stepping into teacher. But to hear you say always be the student is just a beautiful reminder. And your enthusiasm, your generosity, your spirit, it is so contagious. So thank you for having me. I'm so excited to welcome people into the Ziva community. I am here to support if meditation questions come up. There's coaching calls every month. So once people move through the 15 days, it's not like goodbye, good luck. I do give people training wheels and there's a beautiful community. So I just look forward to meeting everyone. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, you know what? I just got this thing like, I think once this opens up, we'll have to do some kind of a retreat together.
Oh my gosh. Yes, please.
We need to get Rada so we can
Yes.
like
Love some dancing.
have some dance and her big spirit, and like let's the three of us figure out and do some like in a fabulous place.
The best place.
Like
It'll be like the world's best retreat, you guys.
I don't know why that just came through. Like we have to do that.
Yes.
It would be,
And so it is.
yeah, and so it is. All right, thank you guys. So we're going to be doing conversations with our people twice a month, and I'm so happy to be back. All right, bye.
Bye, everyone.